Sup, future shredlords? Welcome back. Death to the Fingers, level 1, major modes, good times had by all. So basically, obviously, I'm not going to teach you the scales and all that. There's millions of tabs and videos on the internet. Get on it. But the systems themselves, 3 notes per string. What's that? What's that mean? Right. The classical method is what I call it when you basically ascend using a scale vertically, because that's how they used to do it in the old days with the classical guitar stuff. And then you have a few other ones. You know, you can move up and down in a linear pattern on 1 string or 2 strings or 3, whatever, you know, combinations there. And then, of course, you can go backwards too. I call that mirror inversions. That one's a lot trickier, but it is possible. And that actually has a different application. You see me do it all the time, but you probably didn't notice it as much. But when you see me sliding up to kind of like the same note, but still moving up the fretboard, you're like, what? You know, that's basically me using that technique, but in reverse. Instead of going backwards with the actual scale sounds, I'm like resetting the scale back to 0 again, but in a new position so I can do new things, superimpose it with other scales. So it's a great little vehicle to be able to get down to that position. Nails it. Right. If you knew what I said there, you're awesome. So after I get done that, there's some 3-octave scales work. Obviously, this is a big one. Work through the 3 notes per string stuff with that connecting note so that you can take similar patterns and layer them all over the place. And of course, you can do them with any set or group of strings and then just start again. Figure it out. That's the winning move. After that, of course, the big one, scaling around. This is just where you play the scale over and over and over, all over the place, combining them at will with linear patterns, with 3 notes per string, the classical method, everything, all picking patterns, hammer-ons and pull-offs, economy picking, alternate picking, you name it, sweeps, whatever you can do. It's all right here. This is where you just sit there mindlessly. You put on a movie and you just go, and it's just about technique. You're feeling the pick basically against the string. There's an actual physical feedback mechanism there. And you're like, I need to use just enough force to basically get the pick to do what I want, whether I'm sweeping across a couple strings or alternate picking on 1. Or whatever it is. I have to start with an upstroke every single time. I have to start with a downstroke, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards, depending on what I'm doing, whether it's, you know, like a speed run using alternate picking or I'm using economy picking. I have to start with a downstroke. Blah, blah, blah. It's all got to be burned in the, you know, the gray matter, if you will, and be able to draw that information out almost instantaneously when you're soloing. So obviously that's why you just keep going over it again and again and again. Scaling around is the tool I like to use to basically accomplish it, because now you're forced to see the fretboard, you know, in 3 dimensions, right, using each of the systems. And as you're moving through them, when I'm doing it, in my mind, I'm like, I'm in the Lydian position. I'm in the Dorian position now. Oh, moving down to Ionian. Oh, I'm in the Locrian position. That lets me basically sort of figure out what I want to do. And the more you do stuff like that, make connections, even if you're not saying them out loud, but being like, oh, okay, I'm playing the Ionian mode here at the Lydian position. You're going to be like, this is a lot easier than I thought, because everything else just falls into place right after the Ionian mode with respect to all the other scale patterns. So it's like learn one pattern, move it around 7 different ways, and then get a ton of different sounds. And then just figure out which ones work best together and combine those ones together using synergy, and bada bing, bada boom. Okay, and last but not least, you see me do some free play. This is me just kind of messing around with the scale, being a little bit more expressive, trying to come up with some melodies. Again, there's practicing for like mechanical and like technical precision, you know, like the robot stuff. That's definitely part of it. But too often that can become the only thing. And you have to make sure that you take time to practice the more emotional, whatever, sappier stuff, so that it forces you to sort of, you know, think about what it is that you're playing and try to formulate something of meaning. Otherwise, you quickly see that. You see people do this all the time. You're like, play something. If they're not playing something fast, they can't just kind of create a little ditty of music. You know what I mean? it's because, or they fall back on like some sort of other tired and true, like a cover or whatnot. So, they're like, start playing Little Wing is a classic. It's not that they're not good players or whatever it is. It's about a question of how comfortable they are in their own skin with music. And that's the idea here is you're going to consistently be using these ideas to develop music skills, not just play the instrument. If you're going to do the paint by numbers stuff and just learn other people's music, you don't really need this at all, right? That's just kind of pointless. But if you're like, I prefer to do my own thing that's kind of like this, whether you make a recording of it or not, just jamming around. Or you're like, when I jam with the bands that I like, I want to kind of be able to strike off and do my own thing. This is the kind of stuff you have to do, because you have to know where you are on the fretboard, which means memorizing it, mastering it. That's scaling around, right? Combining the different sort of systems that sort of factors into scaling around, using chromaticism, using limiting factors. And of course, you can hear me at the end use some of the more exotic notes from the harmonic minor to really set it off, you know what I mean? And that right there is the other thing is we're just talking about the major modes, but of course, as soon as you get those under your fingers, you got the harmonic minor to learn, and then the melodic minor, of course. The wheel just keeps turning, baby. Then there'll be more. Of course, you'll be like, ooh, that's a cool scale. And then modalize it and cross however many position it has. So there it is. That's my video. Try to visualize what it is that you're doing when you're practicing things, instead of just pick up your instrument and just start mindlessly practicing the scale that you were doing before. Be like, what if I combine these two things together, or add an element, chromaticism, or the notes from the major scale, and try to do something. So you practice it up first, get your robot skills on. But then afterwards, you're like, what if I just, try to dial up a little delay and reverb on here and just try to make something cool sounding out of it? And can I make some chords too, or whatever, little triads? What's going on there? Like, explore, be creative. That's a huge missing part to a lot of people's practice regime. And then they wonder why they struggle with it later on. You have to practice basically envisioning this stuff in your mind. It's like when you write a book, you have to sit down and write that first sentence to give yourself the forward momentum to keep going, right? Same diff. Right, that's the end of the video. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you. Good luck. I'm telling you right now, level 2 is a lot more difficult. So this is me going easy on you. Level 3 is insane, but we got to get it done. See you in the next one.